There's only one way to get from want to have, and that's to do. Well, how do I do it? Start asking for help. You know what I mean? If you don't know enough about something and you want to know more about it so that you can potentially create one of your own, the best place to start is to ask for help.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Michael, it is a real pleasure to have you on the show today. I have been following you for quite a while. Love your podcast. Love so many things you do. But before we jump into all those things you do, how would you describe yourself?
I think at the core, I'm a lively seeker.
Okay.
I'm a seeker. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a podcast host. I'm a coach. I'm an athlete. There's a lot of areas that I like to, hunt in. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, what it really all boils down to is that I am just a ferocious seeker. I live for the hunt. I'm a curiosity discovery junkie. And, I've chosen a life of better. And so anything that points in that direction, I'm very interested in.
I love that way of putting it, because I think we default to listing some of those things you did afterwards, which are things that we do or roles we play at times. But who we are,
I'm a seeker,
is a different thing. Yeah. And that kind of permeates everything else. Yeah. That's really, no one's ever put it like that. So that's gotten me thinking, yeah, amazing. And as you seek, right, it's taken you down different paths in your life and have built the life that you now have. Before we jumped on, you were just referencing last week this retreat you put together. And as we discussed that, can you talk about kind of what you saw the need being, why you put this together, and then how it came together?
I am constantly on the prowl for guidance. And I have found over time that some of the most powerful guidance I've gotten has been really in settings. So it's not necessarily the mentor or the teacher. It's more purposefully finding myself or purposely looking for certain settings that give people an opportunity to open doors. And that's kind of how, I've kind of seen it that way. And so I wanted to create a setting for men specifically. It's June, so it's Men's Mental Health Month. And I wanted to create an environment and a setting for men to come together and feel no friction in coming closer to the truth. And so I worked with a crew of guys that I have, used in my healing process over the last few years, specifically my breath coach, Michael Gazzo, who has really helped me unearth some necessary, deep-seated limiting beliefs that I've had for myself. He's really helped me sort of dig those up and begin to see clearly what those things are all about. And it's been profound for me. And so I said, my gosh, I've been in and out of therapy. I've done a lot of work on myself over the last 20 years through the 12 steps. And, there's no shortage of work I've done to sort of become, to just continue to seek, get more comfortable with who I am and get closer to actually who I am. The breath work has been incredibly powerful for me. So I reached out to Mike about 3-4 months ago, and I said, hey man, like my wife and kids are going to be away in June in Europe for a couple of weeks. And I really think it would be incredible to put together a retreat for men to be able to experience the breath, because the breath has been so profound for me. And I feel like I have a large enough community that we'd be able to get, 15, 20, 25 guys to want to opt in for something like this. For me, it is the greatest service I can offer. Understanding who we are is so difficult. If you really kind of like close your eyes and spend some time alone and say, who am I really? It's not an easy question to answer. And I think with the breath, it's gotten me way closer to understanding that, because I think once you understand who you are, purpose is, inevitable as the next sort of evolution of that question. So I proposed it to Mike, and he immediately was like, it's so interesting that you asked that question, because I've been sitting with my counsel. He has a group of men that he works with in a number of different sort of healing modalities that they all kind of live very close to each other. And he said, we've all been talking about doing this. And I said, well, my property is ripe and ready, so let's get to work. And we immediately stepped into action. And it's rained every single weekend in upstate New York, which is where I live, every single weekend since Thanksgiving. And I knew, and the weekend before and this weekend will rain. I knew that there was a good chance of rain. But I'm telling you, I prayed every day. I pray every day, but I really did ask God for sun. And when I'm telling you that there was not a drop of rain, and it was 75 and sunny every day and 62 and cool in the evening, and all 4 days of the event, all 4 days, men showed up here and were ready to work. We're ready to just rip off the armor, tear down the walls. And, what's interesting is when you set up an environment, like that's what I kind of kicked this thing off with, I really do believe that environment is the guide, And so I was very, very intentional about how this environment was created. There were a number of different communal areas on my property. There was a breathwork area around the pool. There was a big fire circle with 30 chairs around this big fire pit. There was the sort of big glamping tent area that were all strategically placed so that men can sort of look at, see each other and sit around. And people got here on Thursday at around noon, and we kind of went right into it. And it was an immediate release of emotion from almost every guy there. Started talking, and then poof, it just started to fall.
Can I ask on that? We talked about setting, and then you have your coach, and you have the things that you're doing. And I guess my question, because you had this group of 30 people, how important or not was it to have it as a group, to be sharing this, right? Because it sounded like a lot of yours was you working with this coach, your breath coach, and that was your experience. But you saw it as important, I guess, one, to share that with more people, but two, to have them do it together, not just as a one-to-one, but is there a separate additive benefit in this group setting?
I think the group setting is massively powerful, because it's one thing to have a one-on-one. Now, I think one-on-one is also great. I do. But, it's one thing to be vulnerable with a coach, a therapist, a dear friend. It's another thing to be vulnerable amongst 29 other people. And then once that vulnerability is exposed, having a good portion of that group of people identify with your vulnerability and, potential issue or concern, problem, roadblock, hurdle. So immediately, this group of men locked in. immediately. And it felt like, we had talked, we kick around this word brotherhood, right? Brotherhood is a word kind of like kicked around like authenticity and it's kicked around a lot, and I made it very clear when we started this process with these guys that the word brotherhood is going to be used here, but because we're using that word, and I am a believer in doing what you say you're going to do, I'm going to expect everybody to follow through with this brotherhood. And I think the guys that were there wanted that, needed that, felt that, experienced that, and are fulfilling that.
I mean, that's a really critical point in that in health, right? So many people get the fitness, nutrition, the mindset, the sleep part, right? And I think more people are realizing, and I think our audience is aware, right? If you're socially isolated, you're feeling lonely, it's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? Like it has just as measurable an impact on your health as being obese, as being an alcoholic. And not just with COVID, we were losing this before, and how I think a lot of men for generations have been raised is to be stoic, and not in the positive way, right? Like I wrote a book on stoicism and like the mindset and the important part there, but there's a separate stoic of you just don't feel anything and you don't share anything and you don't engage and you go behind your walls, and that's for women, like that's for other people and not for us. If you're okay with it, you talked about is immediately these walls came down, this started breaking through, right? And I have seen so many times people read a book, they go to an event, and, oh my God, I have this epiphany. Everything's great. And then 2 weeks later, a month later, it's different. Now, your company is literally creatures of habit, right? Like your whole point, your whole approach is, no, it's not the single epiphany. It's what we do and stack on that day to day and consistently that leads to this life that I've desired, that I've built, that I am pursuing, that I am seeking over time. So I'm curious, with this group of 30 men, you had these amazing 4 days. What does the follow-up look like there for them to really change their life ongoing?
We all committed. So we all committed to this brotherhood. We've all committed to a monthly call going forward. We've all committed to immediately agree to, with the proper notice, to future retreats. I don't even know that I'm going to be able to promote this retreat to more men, because I don't think the group should be any larger than 30, quite frankly. Yeah. And all these guys had such a profound experience that everybody has committed to the next one, which will probably be in the fall. We created a WhatsApp group, and, at first I was like, oh man, like 30 guys in a WhatsApp group, is just going to be super distracting if everybody's active. And the fact is, everybody's active. And not only is it not distracting, it's encouraging. Wow. It's only been a week, right? But all I could say is that these experiences are not going to change your life, right? Like, anybody who thinks that they're going to go to something or read a book or experience something for a short period of time, and that thing is going to change their life. How many times have you read a self-help book where in the beginning, the preface, the foreword is, this book could change your life, right? Like that, like whenever I see that, I'm just like, man, I wish they wouldn't have said that. This is what these things do. We all have knobs, right? We all have little knobs. And experiencing things like this just turn the self-awareness knob up a bit. Like for me, if I can have heightened awareness from an experience that I'm actually tuned into, that's all I'm expecting. I just want that volume to turn up a little bit on the awareness component, because the more aware we are, the less distracted we are, and the less will fall back into a pattern, right? It's all about patterns. You know what I'm saying? Like, very easy to just pick right back up in that pattern, you know? But if you turn the volume up, you do enough of these things, you read enough of the books, you invest in coaching, you invest in a men's group, you invest in things like this, it just turns the volume up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So I don't think that this men's group is going to change anybody's life. I do think that the more we play with those knobs and turn the volume up on those knobs, just a better chance we have for a more coherent existence. You know, what I learned about this event for me, what was very apparent for me, was that I didn't make any rules. I didn't say to the guys, hey guys, no phones, no phones. Or I didn't say, hey, check your phone in the morning, check your phone in the evening. Nobody was on their phones. Nobody was caught, you know, sitting and just getting lost in, no one scrolled. No one posted social media. I caught myself on the third day, after 2 intense days, I caught myself, because we every single day we had a big circle where we would all share, and there was no time gap, or there was no time, you know, cap on the sharing. It was just like, get up and just talk. And some of these circles were 4 hours, right? And I was just so engaged. And I caught myself on the third day. I remember sitting there saying, wow, this is what it feels like to truly be present. This is what it feels like to be present. I am listening to every word. I am not thinking about my business. I am not thinking about my fitness. I am not thinking about my wife and kids. I am in on this, focused. Like, it was wonderful. I will say another thing, you know, and another thing that I took from this experience is that, and this is like kind of, you know, not news, but we all spend way too much time inside. I'm not talking about men here. I'm talking about humans. We all spend way too much time inside. We all don't spend enough time barefoot in the dirt. It felt so grounding and so fulfilling to just be barefoot in the grass, in the dirt, in the pond, just in the sun all day long, not going inside, being outside and experiencing and being in nature with, you know, with other people. Like, you know, I chose to, you know, typically I will gravitate towards work in my life. And what this experience sort of polarized for me was that, like, maybe sometimes I need to choose play a little bit more, you know? Like, what is it all for? What is it all for? Is all the work there for a financial outcome? Is it because I truly love the work that I do and it is fulfilling and, you know, and it is of service? Like, for me, I think it's a culmination, but I know for sure that I spend way too much time inside, and the bottoms of my feet are never dirty enough. And I need, like, the name of this retreat, we called it Return to Self. And that was the name that we came up with before the retreat happened. But it really made sense once the retreat was over.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, there is nothing more human than being with other humans in nature, right? The whole concept of inside is, in the long arc of human history, a new one. There was no inside. There was no outside inside. There was just, we were there. We didn't have shoes. We were not surviving against these large predators unless we were in groups. So that was our entire human existence for 90% of human history, and maybe more. And we've gotten further, you know, it's, as we get more and more urbanized. You're in upstate New York, but getting in the dirt barefoot isn't always that easy with everything with sidewalks and asphalt and everything. Like a lot of people don't have easy access to big areas of earth that they can truly ground and get in. I'm curious, in something like this, right? You talked about work and you gravitate towards work. Your company's creatures of habit. You have your morning routines, right? Like here's how I stack a day. Here's how I show up as my best self. And I, in the past month or two, have sat meditating in the morning and just been overwhelmed with, what is all this for? Right? Like I have my own morning routine and the fitness and the nutrition and everything that goes in. Is it, what is it for? Like, is it this super isolating thing? What is the end goal with all of this? And I guess to show, for me, this may be way too existential, but I'm curious, having just gone through this with this group, there's something of showing up as a father, as a business owner, as a friend, as a person, in this retreat, that you were able to do it because of your consistency over these other days, doing these things that stack to the best possible day and best possible you. And then there's also this freedom side to step away from that at times. And as you're struggling with this or thinking about it of, hey, is this the right answer? Or do I need more time on this? Like, what does that balance look like? Is it this 80-20? Is it, hey, every quarter I need this kind of 4-day retreat, I'm not getting enough? Or is it, hey, I'm going to rethink what that daily stack looks like because I had built it around missing all of these components? How are you thinking about that now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So balance has been a topic of conversation for me for the last while. I was actually on a podcast yesterday, and the first question of the podcast was, is there anything that you believe to be true about business that most people would disagree with? And my answer to that question was simple. Yes. Balance. If you listen to guys like Hormozy, maybe Gary Vee back in the day, some of these like hard charging, super influential people, we were sort of cultivated to believe that like it's all or nothing. To be a successful entrepreneur, there is no work-life balance. And, I could honestly say in the first probably 5-6 years of my entrepreneurial journey, there was no balance. I was fully, my life was fully encompassed by my work. And I can also say that I was not happy. I just was not happy. I mean, I was successful. I had built 2 businesses that I successfully exited from, but I missed the first 2 years of my first son's life for sure. That is the only regret I have in my life. The only regret. I was not around for the first 2 years of Finley's life in the way that I am around today. I will never get that time back, and it makes me emotional just talking about it. So, I know that there is balance here, and I could give a flying shit if an investor of mine is listening to this and says, oh man, maybe it wasn't the greatest decision to invest in this guy. I could care less. The fact of the matter is I have figured out a way to create the life that I not only feel successful in, but also happy and balanced. I have a start time and I have an end time every day. And that is a lot for an entrepreneur to be able to sustain and commit to. I do that. I have a time where I open up my computer and I close my computer. I do not work on the weekends ever, unless it is so necessary. And guess what? I don't expect my team to either.
Yeah.
I have breakfast with my family and I have dinner with them every single night that I am in town. And I make time for exercise and I make time for self-love, self-care work. I genuinely believe I have a balanced life. And now would creatures of habit potentially be doing, would potentially have scaled faster if I was, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week? Maybe. Would we have potentially made more mistakes? Definitely, because I wouldn't have been working optimally. So I think balance is absolutely possible, and how I live my life today. And so would it be amazing to live on a men's retreat forever? Sure. That would be great. But that's just not realistic, and not what I want, quite frankly.
Well, it's special because it's rare as well, right? Like there's something I would imagine to it being more special because it's not every day.
The thing is that I just don't want it to be rare in my life. That's the goal, right? Like, let's not make it rare. Let's make it consistent. Let's make it frequent, because after that experience, and I would imagine if you asked any guy that showed up, you alluded to it earlier in the conversation, we tend to suppress a lot of emotion and feeling. It's right below the surface, but it's suppressed. When the guy showed up and we started talking, I mean, it was so apparent how badly those emotions, that expression needed to be released. It was immediate. Boom. Guy would start talking, and then out of nowhere, knows nobody, but committed to the work, knows nobody, and immediately started crying. Immediate. All of 90% of the guys who showed up. And that just said to me, oh my God, this is it. This is what it is. We are walking with a lot of weight and don't feel not only the confidence, but the not approval, but the permission to be vulnerable. And I might get shit for saying this on this podcast. Look, the men and masculinity and all of that conversation is pretty hot and touchy right now. And what I'm here to say is that send it my way.
Okay.
Send it my way. Anybody who has anything that they want to, discuss, shoot me a DM, like send it my way, because I have no problem with masculinity. I have no problem saying that I think masculinity is a great thing. I have no problem saying that the conversation that is in the ethos right now is a different conversation. It's not about masculinity, And so there was a lot of masculine men at this retreat, and those masculine men needed a way, and we provided it,
Yeah, I mean, it's not emasculating to return to self, right? In that, if you're unable to dig there because of fear, right? So fear for judgment from the outside, fear for what you're going to uncover, right? There's something. These people weren't just hiding it from other people. We're not just hiding it. We're hiding it from ourselves most of the time. We're not digging into it, and it's driven not from a place of strength and all. It's driven from a place of fear and uncertainty. And so there's nothing more masculine than having the courage.
In my opinion, like what unfolded here was an unbelievable example of what masculinity should be, and what I think a lot of the media is not disclosing. Get a bunch of strong fathers, business owners, creators, just tough men that are willing to be vulnerable and share and communicate truth. It was so powerful. And so, so that I'm coming off of that. Obviously, I'm buzzing off of that. That was just, and again, I think also like another thing that we talked about in the beginning of the podcast. This idea of morning routine and ritual and consistency, and obviously that's been a massive springboarding catalyst in my life consistency and commitment habit. But I also want to make a mention or make a motion for people to also have grace. If you feel like you need to sleep. But just know that consistency is going to create confidence. I've been sharing this a lot because I really do think it's just a fact for my life, right? I call it the 3 C's. And you can apply this to anything. You can apply this to your self-care. You can apply this to your business. You can apply this to fatherhood. And look, I know we're not only talking to men here, so you can apply this to parenting. You can apply this to relationships. But, success in anything requires commitment. It just does. Anything that you want to be great at is going to require commitment. And so commitment is always the first C, and quite frankly, the most difficult, in my opinion, right? Committing to something, doing what you say you're going to do is arguably the most challenging piece of life's pie, and where most people stumble. Committing, doing what you say you're going to do. But from my experience, once you understand and learn that every human being has the ability to commit, has the discipline to do it, you can, once you learn that, once you know that, wow, I've done this, for me, it obviously was made possible to understand this about myself through recovery. In August, I will be celebrating 21 years sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I know what it means to commit to something day in and day out. I understand that I can do that. And once I figured that out, what commitment breeds is confidence. So that is the second C, right? And so you commit to something for long enough, all of a sudden you start feeling really good. Oh my gosh, I'm just, not only am I committed, but I'm getting better and better and better. Wait a second, now I can actually let me commit to this thing. Oh, I can commit to more than just one thing. Oh my gosh, now I'm, and you just start feeling fulfillment like you haven't felt before, right? And again, I learned all this in recovery. And that is the truth. Before I got sober, I was not able to commit to anything outside of making sure I was drunk and high all the time, which is a whole nother story. But, and so with confidence, though, it's inevitable that courage is the byproduct, which is the third C. And so you commit, long enough time committed, you begin to gain confidence. And with enough confidence, you start swinging. And that to me is the succession ladder to accomplishing anything you want.
Do you think that order, I think, is super important, and the science backs it up, right? But so many people, it seems, think it's the exact opposite. Well, I need the courage and the confidence before I'm going to commit. And so it becomes this excuse to not start doing the work. But to your point, it's the confidence and the courage comes from just doing it.
It's impossible to have the courage, the right courage, without the commitment and the confidence of experience. It's, in my opinion, right?
Well, I think the science backs you up. That's the whole thing. People tell themselves these stories are well, I can't do it because I don't have this in place. But it's, you start doing it and those things get in place. That is the order of events required to write those pathways in our brains.
People always ask me, okay, so what does that mean? I've said many, many times, there's only one way to get from want to have, and that's to do. And they're like, okay, well then how do I do it? And I'm like, you start asking for help. Start asking for help. You know what I mean? If you don't know enough about something and you want to know more about it so that you can potentially create one of your own, the best place to start is to ask for help from other people around you. Because once you start asking for help, you start getting more comfortable with that particular topic, and potentially a conversation, that you're having is going to be the first step in, and so when it comes to let's just use fitness, for instance, or just stepping into your wellness journey for the first time. You're like, all right, I've had enough of this shit. I'm done. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going. You got to ask for help. Hire a coach. Ask a coach that you know, if you don't have the money to hire them, hey, can you please hook me up with some direction? Please hook me up with some guidance. Like, I need a little bit of guidance here. I don't know what I'm doing, and I know that I want to do it. Yeah. And so that is facts. There's only one way to get from want to have, because anything that's given to you doesn't last.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's that short-term burst versus the consistent over time. We've talked a lot about the why and the how, right? On the mindset, on the structure, on the here I'm going to go structure it. I guess you've been on quite a personal journey over time. Can you touch a little bit on the what of, and I know you talk about it in many other places, but just share with our listeners the what of that stack of sleep into nutrition, into fitness, like how you've packaged the what of the day-to-day now.
So I'll start off by saying, today is the day. That's it. Yesterday, kapootsies, gone, forgotten, or maybe not forgotten, but should be. Cannot go back in time and change. Optimize, mitigate, nothing you can do. So today's the day, because tomorrow, chances are will happen, but not guaranteed. And you can't do anything today, tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So I remember about probably 8 years ago, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And there's one line in that book that really didn't change my life, but made me question my perspective, which was, everything happens now. That simple line. Everything happens now. And it made me realize that if whatever I long for, I've got to take action now, because history is happening every second. Every second that passes by, it's just like whoop, whoop, whoop. And if we're not here for it now, we miss it. So I believe in this, today's the day, every day. The second we open our eyes is when the show starts, and you can take action immediately. I look at the morning, I tend to have this vision when I think about my morning. You're staring, you're in the bleachers, or in the stands, looking down at a horse race, and it's a hot sunny day, and and you're looking at those horses behind the gates, and those horses, you could just see them just like ready to go, just like, and then all of a sudden, gates open up, woof, those horses fly out. A couple of horses get a bad start. Maybe they trip. The chances of those horses catching up, very, 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 very slim. Very slim. And so when I think about my day, I say, dude, just don't get a bad start. Don't get a bad start, because you don't want to be trying to catch up all day long.
Yeah.
Just when those gates open, when those eyes open, boom, that's your time to go. Immediate. So what do? What are you going to do? Me? I smile. That's how I get my good start. Immediate. I open up my eyes. We all, or a lot of us, wake up with anxiety. For alcoholics or drug addicts that are in recovery, a lot of us wake up with untreated alcoholism. The number one way to fight back anxiety, stress, and fear is with a smile. It's really, really hard to be stressed out in the moment when you smile. So I smile first thing in the morning. It's just what I do. It's uncomfortable at times, but it's just what I do. I smile. I look over to my right, see my wife I'm blessed. I think about my kids. I think about my dogs. I think about the walk that I'm going to take my dogs on in the morning. I just, boom, quick little gratitude list, And and then everything I do after that is kind of, it's just me taking the best chance of pouring the concrete for the rest of the day. And it involves prayer. It involves push-ups. It involves some yoga poses. It involves a skincare routine. It involves an oral care routine. It sometimes involves meditation and sauna and cold plunge. I don't do that as much as I used to do every single morning, but I do it when I want to. I don't have to do it anymore. There was a couple of years where it was like, and then after time, I was like, all right, dude, you can give yourself some grace. Like, you've experienced that. Fact is that when I do all 15 of those things in the morning, by 7 o'clock, I am like
dialed in.
So people can roll their eyes all they want and say, oh, one of those guys. I mean, yes, you do a sauna, cold plunge, meditation, affirmations, reading, writing, that. And I'm like, yep, that is me, or at least was me for a period of time. And let me tell you, like, I walk back into my house, where my wife and kids are just getting up, and I had just done all those things. My God, like, I am the best version of myself, the best, just the best. Yeah. And I'm not saying that when I don't do it, I'm not showing up that way. But let me just tell you, after red light and meditation, 20 minutes in the sauna, reading some awesome literature, 5 minutes in the cold plunge, and then a few affirmations, coming back into my house, man, like, I feel like a 12-year-old kid,
Yeah.
So I really do take advantage of those morning hours, whether it's a long, drawn out, crazy morning routine or just prayers, push-ups and poses, skincare, oral care, and maybe a little journaling, waiting for the kids to get up. Like, I just think that the way you start is going to paint a really good picture of how you play and how you finish.
Do you think there's anything to it with the locus of control, right? So, right, if someone has an internal versus external locus of control, I am in control of what's happening to me, how I engage with the world, versus, it's all happening on top of me and I can't. And by owning that start, like, hey, didn't matter what popped in my head, whatever, I own my smile, I own these pieces, you have already conditioned yourself to say, this day, I'm the one deciding how it goes versus everything's piling on me.
Without a doubt. And I don't think it has to do with being a control freak. I think it has to do with, we control very little. Once another living being, whether it's a dog, a cat, a chicken, a human,
the weather, right? It doesn't have to be a living thing.
Once something comes into our periphery, we lose complete control. And if you can control the controllables, now that doesn't only have to be, you don't have to be alone, but like, I like to think about controlling the controllables is, what do I consume? What do I eat? What do I drink? What do I consume? Where am I putting my attention? What do I consume? Consumption, for many people, is something that we have control over. How do I move my body? How am I moving? Am I moving? I can control that for the most part. If I'm not getting my 10,000 steps a day, like, I don't feel great. That's just the facts, right? Like, even like, working out is something that I do. It's not like, for me, luckily, like, I love it. I love training, any kind of training. So I'm one of those blessed people that, like, genuinely are passionate about it and love it. It is never a hassle. As a matter of fact, it is so much more than a hobby for me. It's something that I genuinely love to do. So, and I probably train minimum 5 days a week. I love to train. So I'm lucky there, right? I know a lot of people struggle with that. But that's another one where I'm controlling the controllables. Like, do I want to look good? Hell yes, I want to look good. Am I ashamed to say that? Hell no, I'm not ashamed to say that. I know that looking good and feeling good are important in my life. Maybe not for everyone, but I would argue that most people would, if they really had to be honest, would agree. Looking good and feeling good are important. When you look good, you feel good. Performance is just going to be better, right? Performance in everything. Performance as a father, performance as a husband.
Well, it gets back to that confidence and everything. Yeah.
So I think if anybody takes something from this podcast, just know that today is the day. Today is the day. What you put into your body and how you move your body are ultimately going to dictate how you feel, how you look. And when these are all decisions. I think we're something like there's like 184,000 thoughts and decisions that we have to go through every single day that as humans. They're everywhere. It's constant. And, apparently a lot of those thoughts happen to be negative. And I think a lot of the reason why is because we're not in control of most of it, because a lot of it has to do with what are they thinking about me? What are they going to think about this decision? There's a lot of that, especially in today's day and age with the bane of human existence. The bane of human existence. This is the demise of humanity. I'm just here to tell you that. It's just my opinion, I mean, my business it circles it. So I don't hate it, but it is, in my opinion, the demise, and so today's the day. Tomorrow, yesterday, like we all have a shot every single day. And if you didn't do it yesterday, guess what? You got today. You just got today. It's a clean slate, you just got it.
And back to the power now, Eckhart Tolle, it's not just today, right? Maybe you got a bad start in the morning, but that doesn't mean you have to pull out of the race. Like right now, maybe the best time to start would have been 7 a.m. But hey, guess what? You're here right now. Any time in the past is not relevant to what you're able to do in this moment, because this is the only moment you live. You talked about your morning routine at one point was much more robust. Now it's more flexible. You take stuff in and out. And there's certain people who could listen to this like, I don't have the time. I can't do all these things. Is there something, I know my one thing from just this is like, I can tell you tomorrow morning, I'm waking up with a smile. That's a new thing that's going to be stacked into my day. I love it. I can understand the science behind it. And that's coming in. For others listening, is there something, whether it's around the morning, whether it's around the day, whether it's a breath work, like where we started this, what is one starting point? You say, hey, this is not going to hurt you. This would be a great place to start stacking wins.
Set a go to bed alarm. Don't set a morning wake up alarm. Set a go to bed alarm. You go to bed early, waking up is going to happen. You know what I mean? You go to bed at 9:30, chances are you'll wake up at 5:30. Right? Like, and most of the time, you're lucky to get 8. So maybe you're waking up at 4:35, right? Like, look, unless you have an early morning job where you're required to be up that early, most people start work at 9 a.m. If you're up at 5 a.m., you've got time. People always, I think the number one pushback I get from talking about morning routine and how much time I spend in the morning is, oh yeah, like lucky you get all this time. And I'm like, not really. I'm actually a father of 2 sons that wake up at 6:30 every day and I'm there. So I sacrifice my morning time, my morning hours for me. So it's not a sacrifice. It's actually a like proud, grateful to be up at that time. And how do I do it? Man, it's much harder to consistently go to bed at 9:30 than it is to consistently wake up at 5:30. So for anybody that's listening, I would just say, try it for a couple of weeks. Set a go to bed alarm in your phone where it's just like, and do it. It's like pushing snooze is like the worst thing you can do in the morning. You're not getting good sleep and you're losing time, like all of, Yeah, you're just quitting. You're giving up immediately. I'm going to stay in bed. So don't be a snoozer, but commit to a 9:30 bedtime if you can. Set the alarm in your phone. And as soon as that shit goes off, what I do, I go upstairs at 9:30. I put in one AirPod. I have an audiobook or a podcast. I pull the blinds. I I keep my room cold. I close my eyes and I'm asleep in 2 minutes, man. 2 minutes, I try not to drink a lot of liquid, within 3 hours of going to bed so that I don't wake up and have to pee multiple times. Yeah. And, set a go to bed alarm. That will be potentially monumental in your life.
It makes a ton of sense. It would be, because those morning hours, you're more likely to do the things that you want to do versus give your time to Reed Hastings and Netflix or Mark Zuckerberg and Instagram or all these other, where you default in like, hey, let me just give these last 2 hours of my day to someone else. When you wake up in the morning, you're not getting up to give it to them. You're waking up and say, hey, like, this is my time. What do I want to do here?
If you're not working, if you don't have like a late night job where you're working, when you really think about it, how much productivity are you making in your life post 10 p.m.? Like, what actions are you taking that are bringing value, real value to your life post 10 p.m.? If you really ask yourself that question. Now, look, if you and your partner are nighttime sex people, I go for it. If that's the time where you engage in that stuff, by all means. Morning guy. So, look, your cortisol levels at the highest in the morning when you wake up. When you wake up after 7.5 hours of sleep with your cortisol levels high and you're ready to go, like, you are just hunting. You're hunting for success. And, I think one of the greatest tools ever is the 9:30 bedtime. When people ask me, or when aspiring entrepreneurs ask me, like, what are some tools that you can offer? My first question is, what time do you go to bed? And they're like, huh? And I'm like, what time do you go to bed? And if they're like midnight, I'm like, what are you doing between 10 and 12? I'm just curious. Like, do you think you're putting out good work at 11 o'clock at night? Do you think that like, after being up all day long and working all day long, do you think that the work you're putting out at 11:45 right before bed is like the work you're going to be proud of?
That's a great one. I love it. And, for people that have young kids too, I find it easier too, because your meals shift up potentially earlier. You're kind of on that time horizon. So I love the early bedtime. Well, Michael, this has been amazing. I thank you for all the work over the years. These men's retreats sound incredible. I don't know if there'll be more of those and opportunities for people who weren't in the first one to join, but where can people find you, follow you, learn more about, if you're going to do more of these, how they can participate as well?
Yeah, I mean, you could just follow along my journey. Creatures of Habit also is where I focus 95% of my time. We sell a high protein overnight oatmeal that I use as my breakfast, and I have used as my breakfast for 20 plus years now. That's why I created a business around it. Interestingly, we're actually launching a crowdfund for Creatures of Habit because, we hadn't raised money in a while, and somebody had said to me recently, hey, like, you've got such a great community. And this person is a subscriber to Meal One and Creature Sleep. And they were like, have you ever thought of like opening the business to the community to participate in as owners? And I was like, they were like a crowd fund. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. I actually had not thought about that. And this person was like, I know a guy who's been super successful in crowdfund, and it's because he built an amazing community and he brought his whole community along and took the community all the way through acquisition. And it was a very powerful thing. And so I started looking into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what better way to grow a business that has a lot of, sort of diehard fans than making them owners. Yeah. And so we're doing it. We're doing it. I'm really excited about it. We're launching a crowdfund for Creatures of Habit mid-July. And anybody who's interested, if they want to learn more about it, they can go to creaturesofhabit.com/crowd to learn more about that. But, I'm hoping to put thousands of people on the cap table and grow this thing like the culture, is so important to me, the fabric. And like, imagine having like all these people feeling like they're owners of the business, because they will be. So yeah, we're doing that, which is very exciting. We're going to be launching a protein bar, which is super exciting. Protein bar is going to have creatine in it. So it'll be one of the first to market protein bars with creatine, which I think is super cool. It'll be like a gateway for people who have not stepped into the world of creatine. Creatine has been a supplement that I've used for a long time that I always recommend for people stepping into the world of wellness, just because of, it's the number one most studied sports performance supplement of all time. And the studies that have been coming out over the last few years have been unbelievable, of just like the different properties and benefits that creatine can have, from cognitive health to bone density and recovery and muscle development and all sorts of cool things. So we're launching that. And yeah, the Return to Self retreats, they will absolutely be happening, going forward, most likely on a quarterly or semi-annual basis. And I'm sure that there will just be more content in my personal social media feeds about that. So I'm at Michael Chernow, like I said, everywhere on social media. I'm super grateful to be here. I'm super grateful you asked me to come on the show.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, for everything.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.